Are we? And we're live too, right? All right, hi everyone. Hello, good evening. Good to see everybody here today. We have, I'm sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. We had technical difficulties. Hi and welcome to the December edition of the Cyber Meetup. This is the last one this year, and we have a great lineup for you today. To recap for everyone, why are we doing this and why are we doing this in English? This is a monthly event that we're trying to do. We're trying to do an online stream. We're trying to cater to everybody who is also not English speaking. And then we also try to get like all these international speakers up here so that you would have a good, a diverse lineup of people in that sense that from different places. Today we have a couple of things to, a couple of good ideas. One thing that is changed from the lineup that we had earlier is that unfortunately our Finnish friend fell ill and could not be here. So we do have a great replacement. Joseph Carson is standing in for the threat landscape portion of our event today. So let's get it started. There's a lot to go through. And first off, we're going to invite Dan Bogdanov up on the stage. He's going to talk to us about security of AI and machine learning systems, cybersecurity part of this. It's part of a project that we're doing together, but he'll tell you basically what it is that they're doing. So take it away, Dan.
So I have more slides than minutes, so I'll get right on started. No, I was making a joke. I'm not actually doing that. Hi, I'm Dan. I'm doing my best impression of the project manager, Lina, who is not here today. But what we are going to be telling you about is that the clicker doesn't work right now. And while they fix the clicker, I'll continue telling us, thank you so much, about the project we have with RIA Infosüsteemi, the Estonian Information System Authority, which is a study of risks of artificial intelligence and machine learning technology and how to mitigate them with educational videos. It's a project that's going on right now. We'll have the report out in March, end of February is the deadline, but you might see it in March. And then the educational videos will come in the summer. But it's quite an interesting thing, and we have already learned a lot while doing this. So you may ask, why is Cybernetica doing AI? I will answer, we've been doing this since quite a bit of time already. We have been working on technologies like machine learning for using visual systems, building remote towers for airports, working on cybersecurity tools that find behavior anomalies in networks. And now we're just getting started. We're trying to marry zero knowledge with neural networks, optimize cryptography with neural networks. And we have two large projects starting that are about information warfare, analyzing and countering it, and also collaborative image processing in a defense setting. So lots of things going on. And also we've been making secure computing technologies for a while. So our angle when we come to AI is to secure it, to make the data protection thing work. And the thesis that we have is you can't really stop the future. People are going to use it, so we might as well fix it somehow, because people saw ChatGPT and they think they liked it, so that's what we're working on. There's three groups of risks that we're focusing on in the current study. First of all is that if the training data, corporate or personal, is not sufficiently protected, then you may have illegal processing, rights violated, secrets disclosed, you may have models which are illegal to use, and so on. The second risk is that the model is of low quality because the input data was low quality. That means you have either bias or the output is incorrect. There's some heavy hallucinating going on or so on. And the third group of risks that we're focusing on is that the output exposes personal data or secrets or intellectual property that are protected under some regulation, because apparently some training methods can learn things really well from the inputs, and then they cough it up in the outputs. And this has been demonstrated, especially for large language models. In this study, we're listing some of the societal and existential threats, but we're not really trying to solve that. So, in order to make all of this simple and provide people with simple checklists, we're trying to have a simple hierarchy of AI systems. First of all, you build an AI system that uses somebody's API, meaning that the only thing you have to worry about is data processing. You have an application, you build it on top of OpenAI's, Anthropic's, or whoever's fundamental model, and then you have to worry mostly about legal basis for working on the data. The moment you get the model into your house, it gets a little bit more interesting. You have to make sure that you actually have the rights to use the model. Licensing the model becomes a thing. Maybe there's some liabilities that come to that. So in practice, what that might mean is that you download Llama, Mistral, Claude, or whatever you can get your hands on as a fundamental model, and you fine-tune it to do something maybe, and then you start to run a service on top of it. That's an exciting case too. And finally, if you're the bravest of braves, then you will also train everything yourself. And then try to offer the service on that. Then you will have to figure out a lot more issues about the input and training data. That if you're OpenAI or Midjourney or something like that, then this is it. But there's also a lot of these AI-based startups today are in some of, or just government agencies for that matter, it doesn't have to be a startup, are in one of these boxes. So in the end, what we're trying to come up with is that, first of all, you'll try to put yourself in one of those 3 boxes, and then we'll try to give you a checklist of things that you have to figure out. Things like, okay, you have to figure out data protection on this data because you might be using personal data here, or you're using something that could be copyrighted here, so you need to figure out the licenses. So sort of, apologies, it's sort of like a really cheat sheet kind of a thing that's supposed to come out of this with nice PowerPoint slides that you can put in a C-level presentation, which they sort of understand, okay, I need to put this much investment into making that thing secure. Right, so example, if you're building on somebody else's API, then you have a user, you're the service provider. We're doing it for the service provider mostly. We're not so much teaching the user how to protect themselves from AI, more like the service providers on how to securely build or run an AI service. So if you're using somebody else's API, you have to figure out a legal basis to collect data from your users, legal basis to pass on data to third-party processors, clouds, databases, back-end APIs. You have to figure out that their output is of sufficient quality for your business need, that this stuff is available. Means that if you are building your whole business plan on somebody making a REST API available for you for the next 10 years, you need to be pretty sure that it's a stable thing. And then obviously terms on output quality and liability. And then poof, in the center, you still need to do all the standard cybersecurity and data protection thing anyway. It gets, again, interesting if you start training yourself. Then you need a legal basis to use and improve the model. You need to do quality assurance yourself. You need to avoid injection, poisoning, and all of the kind of attacks that mess up other people's AI models. So if your training data is bad, then your model will be bad, and it might bring other people trouble. And again, now you need to figure out that the legal basis you use to get the data also has to include training, which is tricky. Regarding risk management, because we do security risk management all the time and write standards on it often as well, then we're trying to come up with a risk management methodology that would fit into the Estonian Information Security Standard 8 and also ISO 27001 or 27,000 family. So the main thing that we're sort of trying to give guidance on is the AI risk catalog. That's something that's slightly different than if you would usually do risk management. There's a few hints that we have about identifying context, means threat surface, component, stakeholders. There's a few things that we focus on there, that this is what you should do, but these are reasonable things that you should do anyway. And then in our report, we'll try to provide a risk catalog for cybersecurity, regulatory and ML specific risks, and we'll discuss a little bit also the societal, ethical and existential stuff, but hard to figure out controls for this paperclip scenario. So when you read the report, once it's out, it's going to be in Estonian. You'll have a history and taxonomy of some AI systems and algorithms, an overview of applications, and a few sort of an estimate of ongoing international trends, make it larger, make it more open, make it more customized, not just generic language models, but more customized, and also regulate everything out of it that you can. So then we'll come to the 3 common deployment models, showed you those, and an overview of the legal aspects to consider. Nicely, the AI Act might actually reach a sort of a final compromise before we have to deliver our report, so we might just get that in there as well. There will be a risk management methodology that you can give your quality manager, and they'll run with it and be happy. And some example risks and controls. So what can go wrong and what can you deploy in response. And the cheat sheet. And we'll try to offer some recommendations for implementers and policymakers. We'll see how that goes. There will be videos, 5 of them, which will give you an overview, tell you about the legal aspects, architecture and cybersecurity aspects, threats and risks, and a little bit about controls as well. We'll try to have lots of drawings and not record Zoom calls. This is not going to be that. Right, so I do know that you dream about using AI. So Cybernetica is very good at identifying security risks of everything that you do. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't make beautiful AI together. Do you have a question about the 3rd panel on the slide? Anyone? The AI has 3 arms. I don't know why. I asked DALL-E to make that one. So apparently the only reason why a human would start using AI is if it's better than a human. So the 3 arms is like normal, because AI should be able to do something better than humans do. Anyway, aitäh!
Yes, yeah. He's got to go. No, you, yeah. One question, if you have, the report is going to come out this spring. Don't worry about it, you'll all get to read it. But if you have one question, we can take one question.
Crickets, yes.
Crickets.
Crickets.
All right, good. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Bye. All right. And there he goes. So anyways, I just got to tell you, this is something that we've been working on for about a year. We've been preparing for this. We've started this security of AI systems, this whole deal about a year ago to find out whether we'll find a company to do this or an organization. We do have another thing coming up with them, not with them, but the security of robotics or automated systems, which is being conducted by the University of Tartu. And so next spring, there's going to be a couple of reports. First of all, in Estonian, but then we'll get to we'll put them into English as well, so that everyone who's watching us online right now can actually read them in English as well. So we're going to continue. Like I said earlier, unfortunately, our Finnish friend could not join us today. So we really were hoping to get like an overview of what the threat landscape is from them, from their point of view. So we couldn't do that. And so I asked Joseph Carson, who's hosting a podcast and has interesting discussions with a whole lot of interesting cybersecurity people all around the world. to actually give us his take, his perspective on what 2023 has been about. So give it up for Joseph Carson. And
only having one good leg today. But it's a pleasure to be here. And for those who don't know who I am, my name is Joseph Carson. I'm a Chief Security Scientist and Advisory CISO at a company called Delinea. The company's based in San Francisco, but I've actually based here in Estonia. I've been in Estonia, Kokskümmend aastat. So I've been here quite a long time, but most of my work is focused on a global perspective. I do a lot of research. I do ethical hacking, and I'm also the host of a podcast as well. So the podcast itself, if you're not familiar with it, it's called the 401 Access Denied Podcast. And I interview, it's Joe and his friends. So it's me interviewing a lot of my peers, and it's a great time for me to understand about what they're seeing in the world. I started the podcast about 3 years ago. We're on episode 95, actually gets released tomorrow. And we've had amazing guests over the years. So with the likes of Casey Ellis talking about vulnerability disclosure. I've had Chris Roberts on talking about hacking conferences. Jason Haddix talking about going from a hacker to being a CISO. We've also had Sick Codes. If you're familiar with Sick Codes, he's a hardware hacker. And he was able to run Doom on a John Deere tractor. So doing amazing, interesting things. But that one's all about the right to repair and the right to fix things. And also the right to make things secure as well. Then we talked with Diana Kelly, talking about the AI revolution and understanding about what's happening in the AI world. And then, of course, if you're familiar with Nahamsack just in the past week became one of the few 1 million bug bounty receivers. So he's now received over 1 million in bug bounties from HackerOne. And then, of course, a really good friend of mine, Carlos Polyp, who is the author of WinPeas, LinPeas, and Purple Panda for doing cloud hacking. So the podcast is something that I do just to make sure that I stay connected with my peers and understand what's happening in the world. But when we think about what's the trends being in 2023, it's been quite interesting. And I just finished some research literally last week, which hasn't been released yet. But I'm actually going to share with you some of the insights from that research. The research will come out in the end of January, and it was based on basically a ransomware understanding about what has ransomware changed this year. So let's get into basically, we'll talk about cybercrime. There's so much crime out there on the internet that we have to deal with, from cyberbullying to financial espionage to denial of service attacks. It's happening all the time, every day, all over the world. But what's been the difference? What's been the key significant changes that we've seen this year? And I'm going to focus on those specific topics. Of course, this year in 2023, we're seeing a bit of a comeback with ransomware. However, ransomware has been evolving quite a bit. Over the past couple of years, we've been seeing the variants, which has been very much focused at basically encryption-based ransomware, and then moving to ransomware as a service. Last year, we saw ransomware a bit of taking a stagnant. It kind of decreased a little bit, didn't kind of really excel as what it had been over previous years. And of course, a lot of that may have been a result, of course, against the war between Russia and Ukraine, where a lot of typical cybercrime groups who were focusing on ransomware may have been distracted or occupying their time with other types of activities. This year, ransomware has evolved from being focused around encryption-based ransomware to data exfiltration. We've actually seen data exfiltration exceed encryption-based ransomware. And what it basically comes down to is extortion techniques. So with ransomware, what we're starting to see, and the reason why they're moving to extortion-based types of techniques is that it's less noisy. It's more stealthy. It doesn't get the public visibility. So we're starting to see organizations where their systems are not being locked up and encrypted, but their data has been stolen, and the threat of actually disclosing that in the public internet is what the techniques is now kind of overtaking the traditional types of encryption methods. One of the unfortunate things is for most organizations who do become victims do pay. That's unfortunately one of the things we've seen in the research that we just conducted, that we saw over 70% of the victims have resulted in paying their ransom in order to either make sure that their data is not getting disclosed or that they're actually able to regain control of the systems back. And we can take a look throughout the year. You know, the year started off with the UK Postal Service becoming a victim. We just saw recently, of course, the MGM Resorts, a casino in Las Vegas, where it's not just about the impact to the systems, but also takes the business down. With the MGM resorts, you think about it, it was $1.5 million per day on the casino floor alone that was been impacted from the ransomware. And within 2 weeks, they calculated that being in excess of 100 million in impact to the business. So it still has a very severe impact. A lot of the types of organizations we've seen has been around the education and also research. A lot of research locations are being the targets for data theft. We just saw recently, of course, 23andMe become a victim. Also in India, there was the medical database which contained the COVID information for all of the COVID vaccinations in India. So we're starting to see a lot of those techniques for data exfiltration. And one of the things you look at is, what does data do for cyber criminals? It allows them to better target people. Just like marketing companies gather a lot of data for marketing purposes so they can better target you for advertisements, it's the same thing with cyber criminals. The more data they collect, the more ability they have to target people in order to get financial rewards from basically criminal activities. So ransomware is evolving. We've also seen it changing some of the code base, where it's been moving to much more portable code bases such as Rust and Go, meaning that it's no longer just about targeting traditional systems, but we'll also in the future have the capability of targeting things like IoT systems, hardware, cars, infrastructure. So we're starting to see them being more portable and being able to target more types of systems. So that's something to be aware of in the near future. The next things we look at is social engineering is taking a big evolution this year as well. In the past, a lot of countries were safe have a safe haven because of language. A lot of criminals were not able to actually translate correctly. We're using machine translations in order to target things like phishing techniques or email scams and so forth. But with things like generative AI, those techniques have now basically been removed, those limitations. So it means that with social engineering and phishing and other pretexting techniques, it's become more automated, and now no country is now having a safe place just because of the language limitations. Have you seen a couple of years ago any phishing campaigns that would have targeted Estonian language? It would have actually been very, very horribly written unless it was actually translated by a human. If you look at a lot of the phishing campaigns this year, that limitation's gone. A lot of that's because of the auto-translation in generative AI. So social engineering has been taking a big, massive increase this year, and it's something to be aware of. Not just about the automated online tools, but also things like phishing, phone calls, direct capabilities. You look back at even the MGM resorts, and that was a result of a well-crafted social engineering. And the reason why social engineering is on the uptake is a lot of organizations have implemented two-factor and multi-factor authentication in order to protect users' credentials and identities. And one of the easiest ways to get around that is by actually crafting a really well-defined phishing and social engineering campaign. So something to be aware of and something to be prepared for. But it will only get better and more difficult to defend against. The next thing is around APIs. And one of the things I've seen that in the past couple of years, cloud has been a top target from attackers. So if you do have cloud infrastructure, it's much more easier accessible from attackers. And as a part of the cloud being a top target, this has also resulted in APIs now being a top target. So if you have APIs exposed to the internet, you can guarantee that attackers are now looking in order to be able to compromise those. It's one of the easiest ways to stay hidden, and it's also one of the easiest ways to move around cloud infrastructure as well, undetected, because when they gain access to one cloud infrastructure through an API, typically that API allows them to hop between other cloud infrastructures as well. So APIs are another area that we've seen in the top trend this year, and we've seen a lot of automation tools that attackers are using that are actually targeted around APIs, searching things like development repositories for hard-coded tokens and credentials. That's something that's been on the rise, and no longer it's just about exposing your identities, it's also about exposing your development repositories information and information that might allow them to gain access. So APIs is another area of focus for criminals in 2023. The next big one is around AI. I have to put it up here because, of course, everyone's talking about it, but for me, attackers right now are not leveraging it in the way that we're thinking that they're leveraging it. When we think about AI, it's sometimes overused buzzword, and it's basically on that hype scale. But when we think about AI, I've heard a couple of terms that really defines it properly and what attackers are really leveraging it for. At the end, it's really about advanced automation. I really like DT, Dark Tangent's terminology that he used at Black Hat this year, which is that AI is really about making predictions And Alex Karp at the Talent Digital Summit called it algorithm utilities. And then a really good friend of mine, Nat, he referred to it as math reduction, which I think is a great way of understanding it much better, because ultimately what it is, it's an algorithm that takes a large amount of data and reduces it down to something that is more decision. And that's what attackers are using it for, is really about automation. They're using it to create pretexting. They're using it to do automation in regards to if you've got a phishing campaign, you can have multiple responses using a generative AI in order to interact with humans, almost like a chatbot that basically has multiple interactions to build trust. And then ultimately, that's that fifth or sixth one which carries the payload. Because you've built trust, and now that person's more willing to do something because they believe it's a real person on the other side. So this is really where we're seeing AI being more about automation, pretexting, and using those techniques to actually really lure people in to build their trust. And also attackers are looking at ways to abuse those algorithms as well, looking at being able to gather the data to get around the guardrails of AI systems in order to be able to create malware, to create automation scripts and so forth. You know, that's one of the things is that a lot of attackers are looking to do is abuse them. But ultimately for their own tool set, they're basically using it mostly for automation purposes, to do things much faster, to build infrastructure much more quickly, to do it at scale with elasticity in order to basically be able to you know, stay hidden and stealthy. And so ultimately, that's some of the big trends for this year, and it's something to be aware of when you're looking forward into 2024, because these will become, again, accelerated. So I'm open to, if there's any questions from the audience, I'm happy to answer questions and give you a bit more insights into the trends.
So are there any questions from the audience?
I know you tend to wait for a little bit more alcohol, but we have one in the corner.
Right back there. Sorry, didn't see you there. Go ahead, introduce yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the talk. I'm Marco from Mesente, like 25 meters from here. So my question is around social engineering and deepfaking audio and video. Like, what is the status of that thing right now?
So absolutely, this is a great question, and just to repeat the question is around basically with the advancements in things like audio and video deepfakes. That's becoming actually more and more used. Mostly right now it's for disinformation campaigns rather than really used for criminal activities. So they're used for a lot for different disinformation on social media platforms. That's what the primary purpose. But I have started seeing some audio and video deepfakes being used, for example, for business email compromise. So being able to impersonate executives or impersonate accountants and impersonate people in order to get them to hand over information. So that's an area that mostly focuses around financial fraud types of criminal activities. But yes, business email compromise, audio and deepfakes of videos are on the rise. And right now, the advancements in the technology is quite scary to the point where it's very difficult for you to be able to tell the difference without having technology to help check the actually binary, check the video data itself. For the human eye, it's getting very difficult to be able to tell the reals from the fakes. And that's something that we're going to have to look for technology to help us make better decisions. But absolutely, yes, deepfakes are on the rise. But they're not been heavily used across the broad cybercrime, mostly focused on business email compromise. So, great question, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph. Let's give a warm applause, please.
And I will be here the rest of the evening, so.
Absolutely, you can ask him questions later on as well. Thank you. You got it? Okay. Right. So we're going to continue on a different topic in a different pace. And the thing is that there's a couple of these ideas what we're working on here. Yes. A lot of us work in cybersecurity companies. A lot of us are part of some cybersecurity, institution where cybersecurity is there, is important. But one of the things that we, as Estonian Information System Authority, National Cybersecurity Center, what we try to sort of promote is for you, all of you, to come and be part of some larger pan-European projects. And with projects comes funding. So what we're trying to get at here is that there are a couple of a couple of these bigger funds where there could be funding for a bigger cybersecurity project. This is something that we're going to work on next. Let's see if the clicker doesn't work again. I see a red light, a green light, sorry. But the whole idea is there's a couple of big projects, project proposals out there right now that these two funds, all right, I got this. Now? Yes, it now works. A couple of big projects calls out there, which mean that there could be money somewhere in the European Union to be taken into to Estonia, to your companies, for specific proposals or specific projects. We're trying to get more Estonian companies, more local companies to actually participate in those calls so that you could bring more of this European funds to Estonia. I'll give you a couple of examples. So, for example, right now, there is this fund from Digital Europe, and it has to do with skills. Basically, it's training programs for small, medium enterprises, startups, the public sector, for the Cybersecurity Skills Academy. But all of this basically is to say that if you can work on a training program and you can sell this to the European Commission, you'll get a lot of money for that training program for the next 4 years or 2 years or however long this thing is going on. But the catch here is that there needs to be a consortium, and you need to work together with the different countries, different institutions, educational institutions, vocational education institutions, public administration services, research organizations, businesses, and so on and so forth. Many of you are well, aware of these projects. Some of you may not be, but working on these projects and project proposals takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a lot of preparation to actually be part of some of these calls. So, for example, this one has a deadline of 21st of March. I'm thinking that this could be, sort of enough time to actually go into a consortium to actually do a proposal. But this is something that needs a little bit of experience. And this is something that we are here to help you with. Not just we, but, there's a lot of people over here who can. Next year, there's going to be a couple of Horizon Europe cybersecurity calls. Those are also about 5 to 6 million each. And there's a lot of different ways of actually, looking at this. There's a post-quantum cryptography transition project you could work on. And there's security in software and hardware development and assessment. But those are already even longer term. So they will be opening in the next summer. They will be closing in the next fall. But this gives you ample time to start thinking about whether you could be a part of some of these projects or whether you could actually find partners for these projects themselves. All of these things will be up in funding and tenders portal in the European Union. But what we want to do here, we want to help you out with just getting a mindset going. So we invited a couple of people from the Tartu University here who could guide you a little bit through on how project writing actually works, what doesn't work, and what do the assessors eventually look at when they're looking at these project proposals. So with that, I'm going to invite Hector to come up here. He is an experienced project grant writer, and he will tell you all about what to do and what not to do. All about it?
Maybe
right.
Not all, but some. This one. Hi, everyone. I was happy when I saw Dan's slides because they were all text. As you're going to see, mine are all text. Then the next one was more graphic oriented. This is the only pictures you're going to see. I prefer to create pictures with my words and connect with my audience. I am the head of the grant writing unit at the University of Tartu. I also lead a applied research group inside the Schutte Institute of Political Studies. So I have a long history of writing project proposals primarily for research purposes. Before that, you might be able to tell from my accent, I'm not from Estonia, I'm from New York. Back in New York, I used to write funding proposals for public agencies and for NGOs in different fields, not technical fields, but social fields. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is just how I approach proposals, how I approach developing proposals, how developing these very large-scale 3 million, 4 million, 6 million euro European funding schemes. It's as the consultant's job, my job is a little bit plumber, my job is a little bit administrator, it's maybe 1% artist. Essentially, the main thing is to have an understanding of the sort of the cycle that you go through in terms of when you're developing your proposals. So, essentially, these are the key steps. Assess your funding opportunities, identify your funding opportunities, assess them to see whether they're appropriate for you or not. The job of someone who's applying for funding, at least my approach has always been, even back when I was in organizations, or now when I'm running a research group, is to look at the opportunity and kill it as quickly as possible. You don't want to spend a lot of time going back and forth, wasting time on a proposal that just isn't going to get submitted. So ideally, you would kill it as soon as possible. But in order to do that, you need to look at very specific elements to see whether there's a fit and whether you can fit. Oftentimes when I have seen this many times with groups who are trying to apply for funding, they will look at the minimum requirements and they say, oh, we fit that. If you can just barely climb over the minimum requirements, probably it's not a proposal you should submit. Because especially depending on the funding scheme, it might be incredibly competitive. Some of the EU funding schemes are 8% success rates. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So after you assess the opportunity, I always recommend development of a concept note so that you have a basic understanding of what your project would be about. Building the partnership is key to these large-scale international collaborations. Being able to have the right partners on board is very important. And sometimes this is the longest part of the process, just getting partners on board. It's quite easy to build a consortium, but not necessarily of the partners you actually want or need for your proposal to be competitive. Only after I've assessed the opportunity clearly, developed my core idea, built my partnership, do I actually get to writing the proposal. This is another mistake that I see oftentimes with those who are doing proposals. They see the application, they take it, and they start writing it. If you've already got your consortium built, if you already have a core idea that you're working on, then you can do that. But if you're starting from scratch, that's usually a recipe for disaster. Most of the time when I'm consulting researchers, I don't even ask them to write parts of the proposal. I ask them to write input documents that we then use to develop the proposal itself. So process now, you're not going to see money in your bank account for a minimum of a year. It takes, once you submit the application, it usually takes months and months for them to review the applications, rank them, decide who they pick. Once they've picked the winners, you then have to go through a grant agreement process, which takes time, and so it's typically about 12 months, especially for the large projects, the ones that Laurie mentioned before. What are the, and so that of course makes a key factor to consider, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you know, okay, my situation is what it is today, but what is it going to be in 12 months from now? Third point, what are the financial conditions? What's the amount of money that's available for the whole funding scheme? How many projects are they looking to fund? So I can do this complicated math of 10 million euros. You know, 4 projects will be funded, so I know the projects will be about 2.5 million euros each. Is there a minimum or a maximum to the amount of money that they would fund per proposal? Now I know what's the ceiling or the you know, the frame in terms of which I can develop my proposal. What is the review process? Is it a 2-stage application or a 1-stage application? Some applications or funders ask for concept notes. The EU very rarely asks for that, but some do. They ask for a concept note, a small text before the full application. In other cases, it might be 2 stages where they want a smaller application and then a larger application. So that might take longer time for you to consider. How many anticipated proposals will be submitted? This is what I'm finding is increasingly becoming an important factor. We just submitted an application in the cybersecurity field, AI. There was something like 48 proposals, and they're going to fund 2 of them. So we're in trouble. At the same time, we're going to be submitting to another call where the previous one, the success rate was 56%. So that might make be a key factor in terms of how you decide whether or not this is something I want to go after. Maybe it doesn't fit us perfectly, maybe the money isn't so great, but we have a better chance of actually getting it. And then we have to sort of fit ourselves into that. And then where do we look for info? I'm not going to go through all of it, but the EU has separate work programs. They have call documents. The call document is where you get most of the information. Again, as a consultant, that's one of the main things that I do. I keep going back to the call documents. I work with researchers generally, right? So the researchers comes to me and says, I have this amazing idea. It's going to change the world. And then they explain the idea, and then I look at the call text and I see it doesn't fit the call text at all. And I try to explain to them, this doesn't fit the call text. If you want to do this, you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to go into a different direction. So a lot of times pulling people back into and to understand what the demands of the call actually is key. The financial guidelines, application form, facts, info sessions, all of that are different ways. The info sessions are very good. This is a perfect example of an info session. Nobody asks questions in the whole group. Why? When you go to an information session, I don't want to ask the question in front of the whole group because I don't want someone else to hear the answer. They're my competitors, but I certainly can go up and ask questions to people who might give me some information that they wouldn't give me in writing. So it's a key thing to consider. If you have the opportunity ever for a funding scheme, go and talk to the person directly. You can get little nuggets of pieces of information that you would never get in writing, and it can be helpful. So I do it all the time. Then we get to the building of the partnership. How do we go about building this? Again, for the stuff I'm talking about, EU-level projects, they're international, they're large consortia. They might have anywhere between 8 partners to 26 partners. I once did a proposal, actually got funded with like 42 partners. I heard legends of a project that had something like 112 partners. I don't understand how those things work, but luckily my job is to get the money, not to run that project. So that's somebody else's problem. But how do you build the consortium? How do you get the partners in that you want? Skills and expertise is obviously a key factor. Each partner should have unique or complementary skills. You know, it might be a useful thing for you to figure out, okay, what are the whole range of skills that we need for this type of project, and then make sure that each partner fills them. I can tell you, oftentimes what happens, very often, that is not considered. What happens is the group is built, and then I go and I have to try to BS my way through it, trying to explain how all the different skills are required. Sometimes I'll go to the researcher or whomever I'm working with, and I'll explain to them, yo, you're missing skills, you're missing certain expertise. The project will not get funded if you don't have this represented. Go and get somebody to join the team. Resources is another factor. Do the partners have all the resources that we need for the project? Will a reviewer look at the proposal and say, you need some key resource that is missing, there's a gap there, how does that get filled? That's a huge problem that could hurt the project proposal. Geography. Again, for these international proposals, this is oftentimes a consideration. Do we want to have countries all over the EU? Maybe we're developing solutions that are universal. Maybe we only want to focus on a specific region. I can tell you, being in Estonia, oftentimes I focus, if most of our partners happen to be in Eastern Europe or post-Soviet countries, I'll play that card. Oh, we are post-Soviet countries, we have a different situation. Western Europe doesn't understand us. Western European solutions don't work here. Now, for you guys, I don't know how well that applies. That might apply in terms of saying whether or not the information systems architecture or infrastructure is as developed. Not all of the post-Soviet countries are as developed as Estonia supposedly is, as I keep being told. You might have countries with similar problems. And so you say that we're all facing the same challenge, and so this is why we're involving countries. Or you might have different levels of dealing, and this goes back to the idea Estonia is oftentimes we say we're more developed than other countries, and so we represent the different levels. This is also very important because oftentimes when we're doing these projects, we need to have some sort of use cases built into the proposals, right? Where we're developing some new technology and then we have to implement it someplace or somewhere in some specific use environment. If we say that the circumstances in one country varies from another country or from one location to another location, we can argue that the technology will work in different places. Whatever the rationale is, whatever the story is behind your consortium, and there should be one, there should be 2 or 3 sentences. Our consortium does this because is well suited to do this project because blah, blah, blah. Whatever that rationale is, I try to emphasize it early and often in the proposal. So that's just how we present it. In terms of building the consortium, one thing I would say, be very careful about who you invite in. This is a very common problem that I come across. I'll be working with a client they're my friend, or this is a person, or this, and they bring them into the consortium, and I warn, I don't know if you want to do that, because once you bring them in, it's difficult to kick them out. Oh, I don't know about kicking them out. As the consultant, sometimes, not too often, but sometimes I'm the bad guy. I'm the asshole who has to come in and say, sorry, you're not in the consortium anymore. Or I'm the one who stops inviting them to the meetings. And then when they contact me and say, oh, why am I not being invited to the meetings? Oh, sorry, we went in a different direction. And then identifying which partners, and this is a key thing as a consultant who's writing the proposals, who needs to be in the meetings and who maybe you don't need them in the meetings, right? When you're developing the proposal. You'll have 27 partners, let's say. Not all 27 of those partners are going to give you equal amounts of input into the proposal. Some of them are going to be incredibly helpful and needed. Some of them are going to cause problems, slow the process down, go in opposite directions. For whatever reasons, if you're bringing in different groups that have different goals and different objectives, it can be difficult to manage them. So being careful about that is important, and understanding who I need to have in the meeting versus who is optional can be very valuable. And then 3 minutes. So I always talk too much. So especially if I had a beer. So the other thing I would say is just in terms of writing the proposal, oftentimes I look to see, okay, what is the story? What is the story that we're trying to present with this proposal? You guys are all techies, you come in, some of you are really interested in your technology, you're developing this thing, you think this thing is the most amazing thing in the world, okay, great, but will other people think it's great? What are the reasons that it's great? How does it benefit society? How does it benefit science? How does it benefit our systems, our infrastructures? It's very important that you try to have some sort of sexy, and that's hard to say, maybe in IT, but some sort of compelling, overarching story that says that what your proposal will do. At the same time, it should be cohesive. It's very often that I find that proposals say, oh, we are going to be comprehensive in our approach to this. And then it's read, and then somebody says, well, wait a second, you're missing 17 different things that should be included in this. How can you say you're being comprehensive if you're missing this? Or we're including specific groups, and then those groups are not actually included. We are going to be user-oriented, and then there are no partners in the consortium that represent the needs or interests of users. Right? Things like that. So you need it to be cohesive. And each part of the proposal should be. And that's because, and I don't want to step on the next person's toes, but because as I see it, there's a spectrum of reviewers. And there's lots of ways you can think of reviewers. But one way of thinking of the reviewers, well, there's a nice way and a negative way. The nice way would be to say they're more big picture oriented. The not nice way is maybe they're a little bit more lazy. Who is the lazy, big picture person? They might read the methodology section of a proposal, the excellence section, they might read the summary, and then they scan the rest of the proposal because they have other things to do, and then they make a decision. Then you have other types of reviewers on the opposite end of the spectrum. Those are the detail-oriented people. Those are the ones who are reading every single page, every single text, and then say, wait a second, page 42 opposes what's written on page 23. So ideally, you have this compelling story, and it's reflected throughout the proposal. And so I'm going to finish with this slide. So what makes a good story? Basically, that we address a very important need, whatever the dimension of that need is. Does it affect a huge number of people? Does it affect society? Does it have a severe effect? Oftentimes, this is defined by the call text and the funder, so it's not a problem. So much in the sense you can just take it from the funder. There's an opportunity. This is the right time for us to implement our solutions. We have a great solution. Our approach is great, but be sure that it actually is really good. People oftentimes fall in love with what they've developed. Get somebody outside to actually validate that perspective. And not only that we have a great solution, but we are actually the best ones for the job. That our consortium has the partners that we need, that we have the resources, we have the skills, and so on and so forth. And then the last thing, a hook, something unique or special, whatever that is. Something that makes your idea sound innovative, that your audience is targeted is unique, that you're going to develop some specific piece of technology that's important, something that will, whatever it is. I mean, in our case, for example, in doing research proposals, oftentimes we'll focus on things like gender. We'll emphasize the gender component into our. I look around here and I see that we have amazing gender balance. Right? So anything that I can find in the proposal that I can elevate up and say that makes us a little bit unique or different or stand out from a competing proposal gives us a bit of an advantage. Okay, I stop now.
All right, thank you. But actually, before you go,
yes, sir.
There's I think the next slide or the one after that. After that, yeah. Okay. Just wanted to, because I saw your slides, and this is something that. Hi. I do work at the cybersecurity center.
Yes,
I know
yes,
all
yes.
your slides. So the idea is that the question always has to be, what does, to align yourself with what the funder, and that means the European Commission, wants. And there's a couple of levels of priorities, and I really like this slide, that there's a, European Union level priorities, there's the program level priorities, and then there's the same call that has a big text, to consult the text. And if there's a cybersecurity call, then the cybersecurity call is going to be written by bureaucrats. And those bureaucrats have this sort of like an idea of what cybersecurity is. They may be wrong, by the way. It's, this is something that you got to understand. They may actually not have a good idea. But if they wrote it, then the assessor is probably going to be taking into account this text that they wrote, so that they could, apply it against that text. So this is something that I just wanted to emphasize from your slides as well. Thank you so much, Hector. Give a round of applause. He's going to be here a little while. But next up, Hedi. And feel free to actually get some more drinks, some more food in the meantime. Hedi's going to give you a little bit of an overview of how do the assessors assess what these proposals are, and how to actually go about doing the project. So we'll give you a chance to replenish, but come on down. An applause. Yay! Woo!
Yeah, hello. I'll just start. And I think I will actually start from the very last thing that Lauri commented on, that in Brussels, the bureaucrats decide what's written in the call. This is where, if you really want to call for yourself, then you have to go to Brussels and affect what's written there. And there are plenty of people in Estonia who know how to do that. So I think that's the most secure way to get the grant. And then I'll comment also something that Hector said, that call success rate might be very low. It might be high as well. The reality is that even if it's like 3 to 5%, then like 1/3 or 1/2 of the proposals should not have been submitted. And if you remove those, your chances actually raise much higher. So the official statistics is not really the full story. But why I'm here? I come from Tartu University, and that's my alma mater. I'm a professor of bioinformatics there. I have a background, a short stint at a company called Curatech. I did my postdoc in Geneva. And at the moment, I'm the vice head of the Institute of Computer Science in the research thread. So all the applications that go out from, like big ones from our institute, come through my table. So I see way too many proposals in my life than I would wish for. As part of my role I'm part of European life science infrastructure, and I am leading the Estonian node there. And this is my scientific community. So if Hector mentioned a call or like a proposal or project together with 40 partners, we are partners in projects with 50 plus partners, different infrastructures. So that's my everyday life. Since 2006, I've been part of different EU projects. So that way it goes quite a way back. And now, since 2016, I've been reviewing those for different calls of the Commission. And I would like to I put my title that what to do not to get the grant. So this is, if you avoid all my hints, I think you have a quite cool chance to get the grant. And you can get it unless you fail to do so. And why I put it so is that it's, from a reviewer's point of view, we like you to get the grant, but you just have to do your job for that. So reviewers are on your side. And the difficulty in writing the good proposals is to keep us on your side. And I'll go through, I have 8 tips that are the most common ones that different proposals fail. So mistake number 1, you don't know the field. You actually know the field, but you have to demonstrate that you know the field. You know who are your competitors, what's the state of the art, what are you, or like where do you have this uniqueness, what's your edge on that. And in the research projects, I think it's a bit more clear because everybody has to publish things, and you really can say that we have published something. We are like really good. In the company side, it's a bit trickier, but you really still have to know your competitors. I have been now reviewing the European Innovation Council grants, which are meant for the startups, and there it's the same thing. You have to tell who are your competitors, what's their strengths and what are your strengths. So this is, I think, maybe the biggest mistake, but at the same time, like not all the, like in a way, this is the excellence part in the research proposals, and this is where most of the effort is put. And then kind of there's lots of different other subfields that you have to fill in, and then it's like less time is put into all of those until the very last bits when nobody really concentrates anymore. So other thing is that you hold the facts back, and that I think goes especially with the EIC, the Innovation Council grants and support, is that you don't, like, you're a startup, you want to hold back your trade secrets, but then again you have to convince us that you know what you plan to do and it's feasible to do that. And I think that's I see a bit problem that, like, I would like to believe that you can do it, but give me something that I can mention in my review. Mistake number 3 is the inconsistencies in the text. As Hector said, the page 43 is not stating the same as page 21. I'm definitely one of those. And reading the proposals is a hard work. The EIC ones are 50 pages is the main document. There is 10 documents in total. It takes me like 4 or 5 hours to go through all of those, and that's heavy work. And I don't know if all of the reviewers, but I do it in my free time, which means that I might be reading your proposal 11 p.m. I might be reading it in pieces, and I still kind of, nowadays I go one by one. When I started and the proposals were shorter, then I tried to read all of those to get the feeling, but that's not feasible anymore. But I still remember things. And then if you claim something in one part of the document, or maybe in the other document you claim something else, then this is something that reviewers will highlight. And you will not have me on your side anymore. So another big place where mistakes are made is the risk analysis and mitigation measures. Like, risks are always there, and for some reason the problem is that both the researchers and the companies that I see is that, like, we want to diminish them, we want to make them like smaller than they really are, or like you might know that there is a big risk, but I will not mention that. And but if you're in the technology field and you don't have any risk related to technology, or you will rely on data acquisition, and you don't mention any risk related to that, then I can't kind of say that you have done your job well. And then also, like, even maybe the risks are like more or less fine, but then the mitigation measures are like, it's kind of, and also the risk assessment might be that actually the risk will have a big impact, but you say it's a low impact. And then the vague description of how you will mitigate that. So this is a lot of, I think a lot of proposals fail in that as well. Then the timing of tasks and resources are off, because like each of these grants come with a certain amount of funding. With the EICs, approximately 2.5 million that you can ask as a grant, and then different other like research calls, they can be up to 40 million, for example. And then you have to know what you do with the money and where you put the money. And if you state that, I was just reviewing some grants last week, and if you state that this piece will take, I don't know, for us 5 months of half an FTE, but the description of the task seems to me like it's like 2 persons full-time job for a year, then something is off. You have not described well the task, or you are really underestimating the job. One thing that might cause that is that you want to kind of assure that you can do everything, and then you make that kind of task seem smaller. But I think that's not a good way. Rather say that with this grant we can get halfway, but we actually can get there. And then I think the timing of the tasks relates to that in a way that you usually have to have some milestones and deliverables. And milestones are really there for you to have like, okay, this is the decision point. We get there and we see, are we on time? Was the idea good? Can we still follow that up? And this is for you and not really for us. But if it's at a really weird timing, for example, you have a 2-year project and your milestone is in the month, I don't know, 15, then it probably is for something be quite late because you don't have any time to react on it. And another thing is that if you have tasks that depend on each other, you have to really show that these come in the logical order. And if you will do some iterations, then you have to really have this timing, or like these tasks have to last enough that you actually have an iteration chance there. So all the grants use nowadays Gantt charts, and please make them readable. Some of them are really bad, either too many details, too small font, too big font. But these are one of the few figures in the application, so definitely people will pick on those. Then mistake that I think most of the projects make is that your support letters or letters of intent in the EIC case is copy-paste. They have a different headers, they have a different people who have signed them, but for example, and the description of the company is different, but why do we support is a copy-paste. Like, and if you support, like if you attach 10 of those to your application, I think it's worse than having one of them, but really having a true one, because it's like copy-paste. Like, do I really know that you support that? That's a tricky thing. So this is like, I know how it works, of course. It's like you ask a support from somebody and you say like, we would like to have something like that. If you do that, then change that last 2 sentences yourself. Because why I'm telling all of this is that the reviewers are also instructed to be tough. Because if there is, I don't know, 200 proposals for, I don't know, 15 places, then whatever mistake any of the applications have kind of gives us a way to have a critical comment. And then, like, how do you rank if you would all say that everything is good when it's not? So we are really encouraged to be tough. We have to give the feedback. So there's always a quality control on that as well. It's not that I can't say this application was crap. That's not possible. I have to explain why I think it was didn't really take into account all the points that we expect to see. But that's the thing. Like, you're giving away points in easy places, and I think that's the underlying message that I would like to tell you. So mistake number 7. So not all parts of the application are properly filled. This goes like, there is usually the part P1, which is the main document. That's usually filled in fine. But then there is the ethics part, then there is the data management plan, there is FTO analysis, for example. And if you just don't fill these fields, then why? Why do you submit if you don't really take the job seriously and fill everything in? As having a fair, we are really caring about the data and the fair data in my group and also at the university. If you come with a data management plan and say like, we don't really have any data, and then that can't be true. So take that time, talk to the people who know what to write there. It will take you an hour maybe, but don't leave it empty. The same goes for the ethics, I would say. And the last mistake is that the application is hard to read. You can now imagine me again, having worked long hours at the institute, going home. I usually read these things on the sofa with my iPad, and then you make it hard to read. It's like one text. There is no space. There is no bold. There is nothing. It's really, really hard. And it's really hard to keep the attention. So simple tricks, like put spaces between paragraphs so I can have a mental break. Put bold into the parts that you really want to highlight, because these will catch my eye. I will kind of make a mental connection with that. If there's something that you don't really want to kind of highlight, it's kind of goes that put it into a bigger text without any highlights, and I will probably kind of skim over it much faster. And you don't really have to fill in the 50 pages if the norm is 50 pages. I think all the reviewers are happier if they can read less but better text. I think that's, in a way, is all from me. There is the last slide that, in a way, says the same as Hector did, is that convince the reviewer why you, so as a company or as a consortium, why now? Because you probably have now this new great idea. It builds up on your previous experience. You bring in together different competencies that it's the first time ever. And why this? Because Europe has a problem. And I think this I would like to also comment is like there's the call text, but all of the call text, like there is some problem that the Commission has identified that Europe faces. And if you can find these documents, like the original ones that the call text refers, either actually refers or just refers in the text, and you can highlight this is the problem of Europe since that like 2020, and it's just growing. We are losing for states or China. We really have to act now, and we are ready to act. Then I'm like, yeah, good. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not going to take questions right now. Heidi will be here for a couple of minutes later after we finish this part. Thank you so much. Take a seat and let's see if that, yeah, absolutely. And we're a little bit over time already. We're going to wrap this up with two promotional promotions. That's right. So for a 2 minutes part, first of all, Sander Maripuu, you have something to say? I do. Say it. Do you have a slide for me, or no? There should be
a slide.
Basically just a
webpage.
A website. That's the only thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Sander. I'm from the University of Tartu. Since I'm the first promotion, I'm not going to take too much of your time or show any slides. So Tartu University has these amazing things called micro-credential programs, which basically are a bunch of courses wrapped into a nice little bundle of in one certain topic or area. And we are now coming out in the spring semester with a micro-credential program titled Cyber Policy and Law. It's the first micro-credential program that incorporates different institutes. So there's 4 courses in total. First, from the Computer Sciences Institute, Fundamentals in Cybersecurity, which is basically a introduction to the lingo of cyber security, cyber defense, cyber policy, kind of a tech talk for non-tech people, but of course tech people are also welcome in the program. The second course is international law in cyberspace. So taking all the how international law applies in cyberspace, how international conflicts, cybercrime is regulated or not. And then which is from the Institute of Law. And then 2 courses from the institute where I'm from, Schütte, Institute of Political Studies. One course that deals with cyber policies in international settings and international security, and the second in government, in national settings, governance of cyber policy in nations, but in also international organizations. So it's kind of it's a program that is where you don't need any IT or technical background. So it's perfectly applicable for people who are just getting into the cyber world, so to say, who are either in the public sector or are dealing with the public sector in private sector. But also technical people who want to learn more about the policy world, the policy side of things, are of course also welcome there. I think my 2 minutes is up, and I'm not going to take much more time. Thank you. If you have any questions, please go to the website or ask me after this.
Absolutely, you can see the large Schütte on his jumper. And the other promotion, Lauri. I wasn't able to get your slide or up there, but you can say whatever you need to say. Sorry.
So that was sort of exprompt request for the Santa that I wanted to say a few words. So hi, I'm Lauri. I think most of you have seen me, heard me, whatever. So a long time ago, I used to work at the university. I really liked working at the university. I used to do this täiendõppekoolitused, continuing education trainings. I think I started doing this before I even graduated IT college. So I'm again back doing these things. So this year I ran 3 Kubernetes for senior admins trainings. And I actually thought it was sort of an unfacilitated spam that I would come here to talk about this, but it turns out it very well hooked with the previous slides regarding the projects. So I guess there's 2 aspects here. One, if you feel like your colleagues are missing cloud native skills, or if you're an head of an organization and you would want to upskill your employees, then I would recommend them to take one of my trainings. So I'm going to run a couple batches in January and February. And the other aspect is that if you would want to incorporate me into one of these projects as a lecturer potentially, I would be interested in that as well. So it wasn't totally spammy at all. Actually, it was very relevant. So yeah, and so yeah, if you haven't heard who I am, I've been in DevOps and system administration for now 20 years. I've been running my consulting business for 10 years. I used to work at Google. I've done lots of random stuff. I just came back from Saudi Arabia. I spent two months in Saudi Arabia. We can talk about this as well. It was a fun story. And yeah, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. There's a few more beers left, so go grab it.
All right, thank you. Go talk to him. Wait, which one? No, yeah, that's right. Go talk to Lauri about Kubernetes trainings. All right, let's wrap this up. Next year, we're going to take a break now for a month again. We're going to come back in January, and then we're going to start back up on Thursdays. So no Tuesdays. We're going to go back to Thursdays. So the first Thursday Cyber Meetup is going to happen on January 18th. You're all welcome to join us here live. We don't know yet who's going to be up here. We're going to talk something about the Cyber Accelerator there again, but all those kinds of things will come to you through the mailing list or through the Facebook page. So join us January 18th. Thank you everybody who's been watching us, and have some more drinks and socialize. Bye.